Welcome to the next episode of Decants with D. I am Dietmar Ostermann. I'm your host today, and I'm the regular guy from Long Island. Today, we are talking about Barbaresco. The other major Piedmont wine, also built out of the Nebbiolo grape. We had a previous video on the king of the Italian wines, the Barolo. Now the Barolos are grown right next to the town of Barbaresco, where the Barbaresco wines are coming from. This whole entire region, Piedmont, as you may know and as you may remember from other videos, is south of the city of Turin, about an hour and a half. There's a big wine axis between the little towns of Asti and Alba. And to the south of that interstrada between Asti and Alba is the town of Barbaresco. So the Barbaresco wines are 100% Nebbiolo grape. And Nebbiolo, the Italian word, means the equivalent of fog. And it doesn't come from the fact that in the morning in Piedmont you always have fog hanging between the hills. That is true too, and that is related to the climatic conditions of the Piedmont region close to the Alps. But that's not what this name comes from. The name comes from the foggy look of the Nebbiolo grape, the actual fruit. Typically, a Barbaresco, you would expect cherry fruit, you would expect strawberry, maybe a little bit of raspberry, and then other ingredients oftentimes would include white pepper, a little bit vanilla, maybe some cedar notes, tobacco notes, and yes, of course, always with the Nebbiolo grape, some leather aromas and some rose aromas. The food pairing for Barbaresco is a pasta dish with a heavy mushroom sauce or with the famous white truffles that come from that region, maybe even with a wild boar ragu in it. Those are the typical dishes from that region that go very well with the Nebbiolo grape. So what's the difference between a Barolo, the king of the wines, and a Barbaresco, the smaller, less famous brother? Well, the Barolos are planted much more in the hillier area, further away from the river Tanaro, whereas Barbaresco sits right on the river Tanaro. And that water and the warmth from the water reflects on the wine. That is why typically the Barbaresco ripens a little bit earlier and gets harvested a little bit earlier than the Barolo. That also makes the Barbaresco a little bit more approachable. It doesn't have quite as much tannins. It does have tannins. All Nebbiolo wines have tannins, but not quite as much as the Barolo. So a Barbaresco has to be set aside and aged for 2 years, of which at least 1 year in oak, and a Barbaresco Reserve Fire has to be aged for 4 years, also at least 1 year in oak. So the lower tannins make it more approachable at an earlier year. So for instance, I would not shy away from trying a 2016 Barbaresco right now, but I would strongly recommend to wait another 2, 3, 4 years before you touch the 2016 Barolos. I have selected 3 great contenders of Barbaresco wine. None of them is the world famous Barbaresco producer Gaia. Gaia's wines are so expensive. Every single one of them is now over $200 per bottle. So I didn't think the viewers would be too interested in it. Plus, I really can't afford drinking those wines here. But these Barbaresco that I selected are affordable and fantastic. Let's dive into the first one, called the Basarin 2014, also referred to as the Adriano. It's a 2014. This is the oldest of the three Barbaresco that we are trying today. It comes from Adriano Marco Vittorio, the vineyard, and is named the Basarin 2014. I have these wines decanted. They're sitting here for about an hour because of the strong tannin structure in the Nebbiolo wine. I highly, highly, highly recommend to decant Barbaresco wines, and certainly to decant Barolo wines. So the first one is right here, top-notch crystal glass available, one of my old grandma's decanters. And let's go through our process. Step number one, let's look at the wine. Typical reddish, brownish Nebbiolo color. Barely, but a little bit see-through. Typical, that's what you would expect. There are some lines in the glass, but not too many, indicating medium alcohol content. I would estimate 14%. Yes, it's 14%. Let's give it a sniffy sniff. Very elegant notes of strawberry. I like the aromas. They're not all over your face. They're a little bit laid back, elegant. Very nice. Let's give it a whirl. Quite a bite on the tongue. I'm surprised by the bite on the tongue. A little bit of bitterness. Ripe cherry. There's a little bit of pepper on the palate. Still some strong tannins, even though it's a Barbaresco and even though it's now 2014, 6.5 years, but still quite a bite of tannins on there. I like the aromas better than on the palate, but it also tells you this wine can easily sit another 2 years in the bottle before you need to open it up. 2014, still a bit early for this wine. Short finish, a little bit disappointing, both on the palate as well as in the finish. In fact, I will give this wine a 3.0 on Vivino. The official rating for Vivino, 3.8. Not happy with it. Okay, let's see whether we can do better. Second wine, 1 year up. This is a 2015, and this one is the Moccagatta from Brick Barlen. Brick Barlen is the vinter. Moccagatta is the name. This one I had before, one of my favorite Barbarescos typically. Let's see how this works out, the 2015. I also decanted this. Okay, same process, color, brick red, even more brickish in color than the previous wine. I see some strong lines. I would estimate this alcohol content to be higher. Looks like a 14.5% to me. Comparing here with my notes, yes, 14.5%. On the color, I think they are very, very similar. No big difference. Let's give it a sniffy sniff. I smell in the aromas the typical shoe leather that you find in Nebbiolo Grape. A little bit of strawberry. Let's give it a whirl. Full mouth, still a bite of tannins, but good bite of tannins. Not like the previous, the Basarin. I like this a lot better. It's a 2015. Still would say this wine is probably best in a year or two from now. The finish is longer, fruity finish. I would say it's a medium to long finish on a cherry note. Well put together, well structured wine. I like it a lot. A little bit of leather, cherry, maybe even a touch of licorice in it. good wine. I give this one a 4.0 on Vivino, and the common rating on Vivino is 4.1. This one retails $48. Contestant number 3 in the big Riedel decanter. Here we have the Albino Rocca, Ronci 2016. So I'm now going 1 year younger. 2016 was an excellent year in the whole entire Piedmont region, Barbaresco as well as Barolo. So 2014 the first, 2015 the second. This Ronci is 2016. Let's give me a pour. Okay, this color I like the best. It's much more bright, still brick red, but it's a beautiful color. I also see strong lines here that looks like a 14.5% alcohol wine. The lines indicate alcohol as well as sugar content in the wine. Let's give it a sniffy sniff. Strawberry, some raspberry, some cherry, also some spice, some interesting spice. Let's give it a whirl. Fresh, good acidity, well-rounded on the palate, sour cherry on the palate, beautiful sour cherry on the palate, long finish, light tannins, but more in the background, even though this is a 2016. Clearly my favorite. Drinks beautiful. Probably better again in a year or two, but the 2016 now drinks beautiful. Strawberry, cherry, a little bit of floral notes. Very pleased with that one. I would rate this Barbaresco a 4.5. Vivino in general 4.1. Unfortunately, this one is $67, but clearly the Ronci is a buy recommendation. The best of the 3, and I think the Moccagatta was passable at a price of $48, a little bit expensive for the 4 rating, whereas 4.5 or 5 ratings, I'm easily willing to pay $67 for this. And here, even though the Basarin was only $30, did not like it too much. I gave it a very, very average, below average 3.0 score. That is the show, ladies and gentlemen. The final contestant from Piedmont, the Barbaresco. Try them out. Barbaresco and Barolo are both great, great wines out of the Nebbiolo grape from Piedmont in Italy, hour and a half south of Turin. I see you next Sunday.